Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Finance Rebel Show. Today's segment is our Wealthy Conversations. I'm Kamari Ellis, the Finance Rebel. And today, this is kind of week two of changing things around just a little bit. I decided last week that I wanted to have a bit more of a kind of a roundup conversation at the week's end on Saturday, talking about the markets, talking about what's going on, talking about my overall, random thoughts, things like that. Because, I think it's important that we continue to have conversations about wealth, conversations about money, conversations about investments, business, real estate, whatever your flavor is. Because, again, the whole purpose of the Finance Rebel Show is to help average everyday individuals increase their overall financial IQ. And you can't kind of do that as a part-time thing, as a kind of hit or miss thing, as a thing you do every once and again. It really has to be a dedication, um, almost like a religion, almost like being obsessed with increasing your overall financial knowledge, your overall financial mastery, your overall financial education. And if you've been rocking with me for a while, you understand that I'm not a real big fan of the term financial literacy. And again, it might be me. I may be biased. Clearly, right? It's a thing of personal preference, right? It's very subjective. But when I think of literacy, I think of reading. And when I think of literacy, I think the bare minimums. Like you can make out your alphabet. You understand your one, two, threes. You understand basic sentence structure. But you might not be able to do a well-crafted essay. I would want people, again, it's selfish. I'm just being um, forthright, transparent about that. But I want us to be able to do, some 4-hour essays, some very well thought out essays. You don't necessarily have to write a novel. You don't have to write a book, but can we get a series of great paragraphs? 500-word paragraph usually is kind of the standard in college to be able to write that relatively quickly. That's more along the lines of mastery, right? To me, financial literacy is more about, again, can you write a check? Sure. Can you qualify for a credit card? Sure. Can you open a bank account? Sure. Can you buy some stuff? And listen, clearly to me it has a consumeristic bent. Our society is run on consumerism. I get that. But I also recognize that you never get to the land of opportunity and wealth just by buying alone. You never get to the land of opportunity and wealth just by having good credit or just a bank card, right? Just doing the basics is never enough to be excellent. It's enough to be average. I don't want to be average. Do y'all want to be average? I know I don't, right? So that's why I come here almost every day or at least several times a week to discuss financial matters because I know this is something that many households shy away from talking about money. Schools, it's abysmal. It's not there for the most part. And just to kind of give a safe place to have money conversations about what's going on in the world. So again, this is the Finance Rebel Show. I'm Kamari Ellis. This is our Saturday edition. This is our Wealthy Conversation segment. And so again, normally y'all see me interview people. I'm still going to have the interview, but we're going to rock a little bit longer, right? We're going to talk about what's been going on through the week, right? By the way, today's special guest is Miss Tasnim Suleiman. She is the CEO of Blackman Hill. So we're going to be talking about social entrepreneurship and how we can use social entrepreneurship to create better communities. And it's my belief that businesses whether they be for-profit or nonprofit, can help our communities gain greater parity, gain greater equality with the overall population here in the United States. So do me a favor. If you know somebody who's looking to figure out how to better their community, better the hood, do me a favor. Share this out with them. If you know somebody who's looking to increase their overall financial knowledge, share this with them as well. And as always, I'll be answering your questions. We'll be having a dialogue, going back and forth, and just talking about money overall. All right. Good morning, Mr. Douglas McNeil Reed. How are you, sir? Welcome, welcome, welcome. And I'm actually going to take a minute. I said minute. A minute to share this out as well with all my peeps out there on the social webs. But how is everybody today? Is there any topics that I haven't covered that you would like for me to cover? Are there any questions you would like for me to cover that you haven't seen me cover? I sound low? Really? I do have a low resonating voice. You might have to turn your volume up just a little bit. Just a little bit. I know sometimes when I have a lot of competing noise, I can't compete. But usually when I'm in a pretty isolated area, I'm good. Douglas, yes. Tizzy Taz is the truth. You are 1,000% correct, sir. Mr. Sharp, how are you? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Some of the regulars are getting in the room. I know it's Saturday. I know many of us don't want to do too much. But listen, what a great time to talk about money, talk about empowerment, talk about bettering yourself. Every day is a great day for that for me. I don't know about y'all. And that will definitely be on the board, Mr. Reed. And I know you are a member of the organization as well. So thank you for joining. All right, folks. So this week was a very, very, very busy week out there in these markets. You had the Fed reporting. You had several corporations report or stocks report earnings. Apple, Google, just to name a few. Ford, another one. There's been a lot. We also seen some people that are again closing stores. Dunkin Donuts is closing. I want to say it was either 500 or 800 stores. I'm going to look it up real quick. That's just showing that the kind of cornerstones in the market are having problems. Everybody loves coffee, at least in this country, and we spend a lot of money on coffee. So seeing stores closing, that is never a good thing. That means we're going to see unemployment rise even higher. So it is 800 stores. 800 stores, they are closing nationwide. That's never a good sign. That is never a good sign. So let's hop into that, and we will hop into a lot of other subjects as well. All right, so Dunkin Donuts, 800 stores closing. Leonard Richardson, how are you doing, sir? I'm trying, Douglas. Listen, I need all the help I can get. I can't do it by myself. So, again, almost every day I come and I talk about some facet of money, because again, money is such a taboo subject in the Black community. It's time we erase that stigma. It's time we got rid of that. So let's talk about it. A lot of us go to Dunkin Donuts. So like it says here, Dunkin Donuts is permanently closing 8% of United States locations, which is roughly 800 restaurants. To me, that's crazy, y'all. That's totally crazy. I didn't see this. Also, earlier this week, McDonald's also said it was closing 200 low volume locations, with more than half being in Walmart stores. So if McDonald's isn't seeing traffic in Walmart stores, that means 9 times out of 10, those Walmart stores aren't seeing the same level of traffic either. Might be low-level Walmarts as well. Could potentially be looking to close again, which will lead to more layoffs. And we don't need that, because the United States already has over 30 million people unemployed. So it's a rough day out here, folks. It truly is a rough day. So one of the things people always ask me, right, is where should I go to read about money and get basic money information? And I tell people all the time, going over to USA Today, or grab the USA Today. I still like personally reading the paper. I do kind of straddle between the paper. Like, I got my Barron's here. I usually get that every Saturday when they deliver to me. And, reading stuff on my iPad, reading stuff on my phone, reading stuff on the computer. But again, I would just go peruse the USA Today personal finance section / money section. There's a lot of good stuff on there. And I know a lot of us don't like to be bored, right? So then we'll talk about, we don't like to be bored. And so sometimes when things are hard to read, we'll get a little bit more frustrated. But guess what? The USA Today is written on probably a 5th or a 6th grade level, if not lower. Most of your average publications are written on a lower level. There are some money publications that might write a little bit higher, but for the most part, it's not a hard read. It's not a hard read. So when we look on USA Today, major story: small businesses are dying. Wear a mask and save them. And I'm not even clicking into this article. I already know what they're talking about, wearing a mask, because COVID levels are still spiking. So as the COVID numbers rise, that's the way the economy is going to go. If anybody had a chance to watch the Fed Reserve meeting, because the Fed Reserve does a few meetings, there's a few press releases or press conferences throughout the year. I'm probably the only money nerd here that will do that, but I'll watch them and just to see what they're saying, just to see what their take on the economy is. And basically, Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, said as COVID numbers increase or decrease will be the way that the economy increases and decreases. And they started to talk about GDP numbers, which stands for gross domestic product, which is basically a measure of the economy in the United States, right? And they said during the second quarter of the GDP reported, second quarter numbers fell by almost 30%, a little bit more than 30%. That's like falling off a cliff, literally, without a parachute. So it's been pretty rough. It's been pretty rough. Thank you, Miss Edith, for sharing with friends, family, and Facebook. Appreciate you. Okay, Miss Edith, I'm finding you sound like Barry White today. Show you right. By the way, Barry White is one of my favorite artists. Like, his story is amazing. Lisa Fuqua, how are you? How are you? Mimi Bass, how are you? Good morning. So I appreciate those shares. All right, so, as COVID numbers rise, as COVID numbers fall, will dictate how the economy goes. And sadly, people are mad because they have to wear masks. Let me say, some people are mad because they have to wear masks, all right? I don't want to label. I'm not trying to overgeneralize. I am just trying to have a basic conversation, though. So forgive me if I am overgeneralizing too much for you. I will try to do a better job. But listen, again, we're just having a conversation. That's all it is. Nothing fancy. It's not a lecture. I'm not here to preach to you. I don't have on my robe. All right. I'm not a preacher. But again, many of us have a problem with wearing masks. As a result of that, we're starting to see COVID spikes. I'm not here for the conspiracy theories around COVID. We've seen countries around the world basically install wearing masks or enforce wearing masks. Their numbers are coming down. Their economies are starting to open back up. Like China right now is basically open. Now, you can follow the logic of the resident in the White House right now and said that a lot of their stuff, a lot of their information was misleading. I really don't know. I really don't care because he's not a reliable source in and of himself. So you don't know what to believe in that. But I will say this, anything we can do to prevent the spread is something I'm okay with. And I don't like wearing my mask either. I don't like wearing them at all. Matter of fact, I got one here on my desk. But you have to realize that as the numbers slow down of COVID, the economy can open back up. As the economy opens back up, we can have more jobs. We can reduce the rate of unemployment. When I say we, I'm just talking again in general in the United States, because more people will be able to shop, more people will be able to go out and do things, have fun, socialize, because a lot of people are still scared. A lot of folks are still scared. They don't know what to do, and they don't want to get infected, because by all accounts, many times this virus can be very, very painful, and nobody wants pain at all. We all avoid pain as much as possible. Many even believe that pain is one of the leading drivers of getting people to self-correct or do things in a better manner. So, all right, so let's go back and look at some of these reports today. All right, so small business are dying, wear masks. My tough childhood taught me this about money. How will you cope with the extra $600 in unemployment? Excuse me. How will you cope without the extra $600 in unemployment? Many workers making less than they did before COVID-19 hit. Your home made simple. 5 ways Biden proposes to lower childcare costs. New to investing, tips all beginners should know. Y'all know that got my attention. Y'all know I love the markets. Expiration of $600 unemployment benefits may spike mortgage delinquencies, right? A lot of people can't pay their mortgages. How this recession exposed economic myths. Now, that one I find interesting, but that was written back on July 19th. I must have missed it. Are any of these articles interesting to y'all? Is your home age friendly? 6 ways to find out. Big change is coming to the next stimulus deal. Now, if y'all been paying attention to me, my page, my YouTube channel, my Instagram, my Facebook, y'all already know I talk about a lot of this stuff already well in advance. But again, don't just lean on me and my understanding. Y'all also have to take the onus on your own and do your own research if you're serious about really mastering the money game. These ignored stocks may be poised for a gain, a bounce. Investing with little money, go for fractional shares. I'm a big fan of fractional shares. Not penny stocks though. Tax deadline. All right, so all of these are old at the bottom. These are the newer ones at the top. So let's look at this one. Oops. I messed that up. So my ad blocker is causing a problem. I have to work this out. It's been causing me problems for a minute. It's a pain in the butt, but everybody, I hate getting ads. I don't want to get ads. So let me see something here. So give me 1 second. I have to remove the ad blocker so we can look at that article. Wasn't something I planned for, but we are here now. So, all right. Let's see. Should be working now. All right. So the economy was grim. My dad walked out and every penny mattered. Here's what my childhood taught me about money. Jeez, that's pretty sad. That's real sad. So this lady, Nancy, wrote this article. It's a commentary about how she came to age in the 70s when America faced a long and deep recession. If anybody remembers the 70s and weren't necessarily born then, you had a lot of things going on. You had civil unrest, especially after King died. You had the Vietnam War that caused a lot of problems. You had oil crisis that caused problems. And you had an economic slowdown to a large degree. So, all right, my dad was laid off. Let me stop. Stock prices, not that we owned any shares in my family, lost nearly 50%. Interest rates hit close to 20%, and jobs were scarce. My dad was laid off more than once. We spent years eating meals of rice and beans, nursed our Pontiac Tempest long past its prime, and wondered if we might lose our home. My dad got yet another job. My mom went back to work. There was a valuable lesson, but even more valuable was the conversation that took place at the dinner table. We kids weren't shielded or coddled. So that point right there, what they just said, this is very valuable right here. When they had dinner, they had conversations about the situation. They didn't try to hide their money issues. I think us as parents many times try to hide our children from pain, but then we complain about them not growing up and being as strong or as resilient as we are. Part of that is because we failed as parents. Listen, I ain't judging nobody. I'm not judging nobody. But I see parents oftentimes say that they want to make their children's lives easier than the hardship of their childhood. And I get it. And again, that's personal preference. However, if your goal and your vision is to make a strong child, right? And actually, let me back up. The whole point of being a parent isn't to raise a child, it's to raise an adult, right? And again, in my opinion. But if you really want them to grow up strong and be resilient, they have to prove themselves. They have to go through some things. They can't be coddled. They can't be sheltered to a large part, right? We still have to be parents. We still have to protect our children from danger, unseen dangers, just overall dumb and foolishness. However, we could be a little bit more forthcoming about some of the real realities of the world. Let me know if y'all agree with that or not. Just put agree or disagree in the chat. And so I think that point right there, especially as it relates to money, is so powerful, right? Again, she says, my mom went back to work. That was a valuable lesson, but even more valuable was the conversations that took place at the dinner table. We kids weren't shielded or coddled. Right, so we're talking about money. I believe in letting your children know what the bills are, letting them know how much money comes in, letting them know how many hours it takes to make whatever it is that you have to pay, whether it be the electric bill, whether it be the gas bill, whether it be the mortgage or the rent, your real estate taxes, your car payment, whatever it is. Like just breaking it all the way down with them. All right. And the raw truth was right there in front of our faces in all its gloom. We knew the risk facing our family. Then one day my dad walked out and our reality became even grimmer. We were sunk. I mean, mom kept it real. It's unfortunate that dad walked out, but mom was keeping it real. My incredible mother modeled courageous behavior, She got a second job because we were wobbling across the high wire of life without a safety net. I learned the importance of work. A lot of us had to teach our children the importance of work. I was a preteen at the time, too young to get a real job. So I babysat, pet sat, and cleaned houses and saved every bit of my earnings. I learned that each penny unspent increased my sense of safety, increased my flexibility, provided me with the wherewithal to dream. In short, economic uncertainty provided me with valuable life skills. So during these grim times when many of us are treading in treacherous waters, how do we overcome our own fears to teach our children valuable financial principles? So this is interesting to me because I often get a lot of people that say, well, how can I teach my kids about money, right? How can I teach my children? How can I teach my children about money? And I always say, you learn about money as well, because the conversation usually is around investing. How can I teach my children how to invest? Well, I say you learn how to invest and y'all do it together as a family. That's one of the best ways. And so the article says here, model good behavior. So when you model good behavior, you're actually showing, right? You're not just talking. You're letting your children know or your child know that, hey, this is how I do it. I practice what I preach. I walk my talk, right? Or I walk my talk, right? And I think that's very, very important. So model good behavior. Start by modeling satisfaction and gratitude for what you have, right? There's so many spoiled brats out there, even my children at times. My children aren't that bad. I shouldn't throw them under the bus, but sometimes they act a little entitled. And I think all children do. I'm sure I did at some point as well, but I think gratitude is a big key to things. Like, there are people that do not have roofs over their heads. You can start off just being thankful for that. There are families who don't have running water. There are families that don't have gas. There are families that don't have electricity. I know when I was growing up, I experienced all those shutoffs and all those notices at some point or other, right? And it wasn't because nobody was working or being lazy. It was a bad situation and you had to work through it. All right, so my mother's parents fled Armenia during the genocide in the early 1900s and landed in Fresno, California. My mother's father soon took off for San Francisco and left the family alone and destitute. My mother learned early how to be content with very little and passed that along to her children. Instead of blocks, we played with free lumber scraps. That's interesting. The complexity of trying to build structures with uneven triangle and rectangular pieces was a challenge. And it kept us busy for hours. My brother went on to become an engineer. Wow. That just shows that you don't necessarily have to give your children the world, right? Quote unquote, the world, and all the designer things and everything else and all the toys. Just figure out ways to keep their minds active. And they still can be successful. And I'm not judging success for how much money you have. I'm judging success that this man was able to go on and become an engineer. Just from that, all right? Other point, let them practice. Engage your children in the act of saving. There are so many so-called gurus out here that say savings is dumb. If I could reach through the screen, I would smack the taste out of their mouths because they sound like idiots. Sadly, a lot of us fall for it, though. A lot of us fall for it. A lot of us believe it. A lot of us think that the new guru has some kind of secret sauce, right? They have some kind of shortcut. There are no shortcuts. The only shortcut is the work. Again, the only shortcut is the work. The work is the work, and you got to work it. All right, but savings is important. So with my own family, we set up a savings plan based on incentives. We placed jars in the kitchen. Behavior and chores were rewarded. So they set up a reward system. That's one of the ways to instill behaviors and habits. So each child's own savings were matched. We also established penalties for undesirable behavior. Think food fights, for example, which were deducted from the jar. The act of watching the jar fill up, then sorting the money and taking deposits to the bank became an important ritual reinforcing the importance of earning money and watching your savings grow. So, again, they were doing some of the basics. A lot of times I see people say, well, I don't want to save, or my money's just sitting in the bank and it's not earning any interest. And I look at them and say, so what? Not to say that I don't care about the interest, and I don't care about maximizing your earning potential. But a lot of times I get those questions from people who won't save at all. So there really is no money to maximize, because every dollar that they earn, they spend just as fast as they earn it, right? So, I believe a lot of people have spenders disease. There's a video I found for a television interview I did years and years ago. And I said, I believe everybody has a spenders disease. Basically, as soon as they get some money in their pocket, they want to go spend it. Many people talk about retail therapy. Ain't nothing therapeutic about that. It's very destructive when you are aligning your emotions and the fulfillment in your emotions to how much you go out and spend, or how much you go and make someone else rich. That's an issue, in my opinion. I don't know about y'all, but that's an issue in my opinion. So I just realized time really just flew. So I see my guest is waiting in our virtual green room. And so I want to bring her on, but I just want to talk about this last point real quick. Be open to struggles. Talk to your children about your own financial difficulties. Let them know where you lack and where you're strong, right? If you've lost your job, let them know that. If the family's struggling, let them know that. Discuss the near-term sacrifices, right? So if you can't buy your kids a brand new pair of sneaks because you got to pay their electric bill, do that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But in the interim, I want to bring on my buddy Taz so we can talk about all things mental health and social entrepreneurship. Hi, Taz. How you doing today?
Hey, Kamari. How are you?
Good, good. I see your hair is fresh to death.
Yeah, shout out to Sierra, Black Girl Magic. I had to get my hair done. She came to my house. Thank God.
Oh,
The
man,
pandemic, yes.
you must be special to have a hairstylist come directly to your house.
But she's
You
more
got,
like a girl that know how to slay the hair. So
right. Well,
that's
listen,
all you
everybody.
need. That's all you need during the pandemic, though.
I agree. I agree. Well, I don't have any hair, but I agree. So listen,
That make
everybody.
it even better. See, like if you go bald, that's the best thing to do during
No,
pandemic because you don't need no real maintenance.
no, we'll talk about that later,
Okay.
though. So everybody, this is Taz M. Suleiman. I've known Taz for maybe a year, maybe 2 years. Met Taz through radio. Ever since I met her, I've been inspired by her and her awesome magic. So this lady has basically taken on the challenge of making sure that Black men get access to adequate mental health. What does
Mm-hmm.
that mean? She actually helps to offer mental health therapy sessions to Black men who are in need. And y'all know in our community, in the Black community, many of us shy away from what they call therapists or shrinks. I don't like that term, but that's the terminology we use a lot of times. And often many of us kind of cry in the dark and we suffer alone in sadness. And that shouldn't happen. And I really don't think we really think about how damaging that is to our overall community, to the financial health of our community, to the relationship health of our community, to the parental and family health of our community. Mental health impacts everything. So I wanted to get Taz on to talk about what she's doing, the organization she's built, and some of the challenges she's had to overcome in her journey so far. So Taz, thank you again. You look like you're
Sure.
really hot right now.
I look like I'm really what?
Hot. I had a
Yeah,
fan going.
yeah, okay. Because is the fan too loud? I am really hot. But is it blurring out my sound? Because I could like turn it off.
If you could turn it down just a notch, that would be cool.
I got you. Let me turn it down. How's that?
That's good. I don't want you to internally combust.
But you know what? I just realized it's actually it's really nice outside today too, so it's not that bad. So
Yeah,
thank
this
you for
is
having me.
one of the
I
better days.
definitely I could never tell you no because you're my accountist. You know
Well,
my
account.
term for you.
All
I
right,
know you hate
don't,
it. We
don't,
working on the title. I'm still
don't,
working on it,
don't
but
start that. Don't start that
they
this
don't
morning.
know that you really like. I keep telling Kamari he's the finance rebel, but he really to me is the finance therapist because he's been like really therapizing me. So
Therapizing. You just made up a word
yes,
on this.
basically yes.
All right, all right, all right. So, Taz, real quick, I kind of want to start because you got a whole lot going on. You recently, or not recently, a couple months ago, you did the Breakfast Club with Charlamagne the God,
Right.
Angela Yee, and DJ Envy. What was that like?
That is still so surreal. Like that happened all so quick and so fast. I remember like even when we were there, it was just like you're not really there. And then afterwards, like I think it came out like 2 days later, and I'll watch the interview and be like, that really happened. So I think when you have amazing opportunities like that, sometimes it feels kind of surreal. But the reality of it has sunken in as like there's been so many opportunities that have come about since then. So that's what makes it more real. But like going back to watch the interview, I'm kind of looking at it too. Like I just cannot believe that that happened because we went from like literally like no one we had just got it right around the time the Breakfast Club interview came about and Charlamagne called. We had our first article in the Enquirer that was published on February 1st. And we were so excited because we were like, yes, finally the city will know about all of this amazing work we're doing. And that exact same day, Charlamagne called me and was like, come to New York, like tomorrow or like 2 days later. So we kind of skipped over the city knowing and it went to like the country knowing. So I don't know if we were fully prepared for that, but it ready or not, like that's what happened.
So it's not even just the country, right? It's really the world. I mean,
Right.
the Breakfast Club is nationally syndicated in a whole bunch of cities across the country, but their internet reach, their YouTube reach, their podcast reach is
That is
phenomenal.
so true.
Yeah,
We have men from Kenya, Africa. Like I mean, you're absolutely right because there were men from Africa, London, Canada, everywhere. Like, hey, do you have that here? And we're like, no, not yet. But you're right. It did go way past just the country. So it was overwhelming. It was overwhelming, but just so much gratitude, like overwhelmed mixed with gratitude.
right. And during that show, Charlamagne actually announced that he was going to fund one of your cohorts, right?
Yes.
$10,000, I believe,
Hmm.
on the show, right?
Yes. Yep.
And then that led to other opportunities, more donations for your nonprofit,
Yes.
and a whole basically about face for
Yes.
that to be a black man.
Yes. It's still, even doing these interviews is still like talking about the journey is still surreal because it's like I cannot believe that this is the journey. Like I'm living it, even I'm experiencing it. But when I talk about it, it's like that opportunity to step outside of it and watch it and be like, that's incredible. Like it's like the journey has been truly incredible. Like Charlamagne really kind of spun everything off. One was giving us that amazing opportunity and that platform, and then donating $10,000 to sponsor our cohort 5, which we just started. And then after that, the general public, I mean, like on that show, I said, every dollar counts. And, we had done this mission with no dollars for, you know, a year and a half up until that moment. And so by saying every dollar counts, like the general public within like 2 weeks had like literally from $1, $2, $5, 10, 20, 50, whatever they could give, had raised another 11,000. And
Right.
that, I mean, that meant so much to us because I mean, like now we're getting like big donors, and since then we've raised a collective total of 130,000. But we felt so the
Oh,
most
we
overwhelming.
talking numbers?
Yeah, I'm talking numbers. I'm talking numbers. Well, I can finally talk numbers. You taught me. You know you be teaching me this, therapist, accountants. but
Okay, good.
but no, like those $1, $2 donations meant so much because those we know that those came from our people, right? Who believed in our mission and they didn't have much to give, but they were attached with like notes of saying, "I don't have much, but I just watched the Breakfast Club and my boyfriend or my husband now wants to go to therapy," or "Thank you so much for doing this." So though they just meant so much, and every dollar has counted towards this mission because every time somebody donates it means that they believe in us and they believe in what we're doing, and we believe in it so heavily, so it just feels like it's just the alignment is there.
So a lot of times, so I'll share this. I don't. So it's funny, right? Taz is like sharing all my secrets, right? So one of the things I try to do is, I don't necessarily believe in tithing in the Christian way, but I do believe in giving back, right? And you can give back, in my opinion, right? I'm not trying to offend anybody, with your time, talent, or treasure, right? So I try to give back with my talent, sometimes my treasure, and definitely with my time. And, I help nonprofits from time to time with some things. And, when me and Taz's path crossed, I thought the purpose was so great that I had to help in whatever way I could because it was so important. And I think it's important that you were able to get out there and then talk about all that. And that's why I feel like I was able to help. But I usually don't talk about that, right? That was my secret. You let out my secret identity to the world. So I like to be a superhero on the low, as I like to
Well, I'm sorry to like let the
blow
world
up my
know
spot.
and strip your cape, yeah.
Yeah,
But no,
thanks.
because you have been incredibly pivotal and helpful to me on this journey. Because when I get overwhelmed, which I do, or when I feel very anxious, which is very often, um Kamari, which y'all don't know about, he's great with the finance stuff and all of that, but like he's really just great. Like when it comes to money, people tend to feel a lot of stress and anxiety. He's really good at the other part. Like I told him, like I'm the therapist, but I be like laying on his couch and he can like calm me down mentally and emotionally. And that is his gift. And I actually think I keep telling him, you need to be marketing that because there's so many people who get so emotional around like and overwhelmed from money that or you'll feel so much like shame or just so much like uncertainty around it. Like I think he should technically be marketing himself for his therapeutic gift of calming that ass down, basically. Yes.
So for the record, I did not pay Taz to say all those glowing things. I didn't know she was going to do all that. Yeah, I'll show all the bank records. There's no transfer of money to her at all. Well, thank you. I'm truly honored to for those kind words. I'm honored to be working with you as well. But nobody's here for that. They want to hear about you. They
Okay,
want to hear your story.
let's talk about
They
me.
want to
I
hear
ain't
your,
talking about
hear
me.
your story, right?
Let's talk
So
about Blackman Hill. I don't like talking about me, but I will talk about my baby all day long.
wait a minute. You're my guest, so you got to give me a little grace, a little leeway, right?
You're right.
Because you created Black Men Hill, right? And so you kind of are Black Men Hill. So it's important that people know a little bit about you. We don't tell all the tea, but just a little bit about you. I'm curious to know, why do you feel overwhelmed by the support you get from the community?
um it's overwhelmed and my heart is so full it's about to explode type of overwhelmed. So that's not a like, and it's so confirming and affirming. I feel like people, it's like you feel seen, like to feel seen, or for you to know how important something is and to be working for it so hard. Like I've never worked harder for anything than I have. Truthfully, I never knew that until I started Black Men Hill. I never knew that I've never worked as hard as I was capable of working until this. So yeah, with the support, it feels like you get that, like people see the work, right? And that means so much. So like I get overwhelmed with emotion about the support. And it's just so important. I love that other people see it. It's like you have that baby. You know how like your baby is so special, and you be like, "Oh, my baby's the most beautiful baby in the world." But when other people is like, "No, it really is a beautiful baby," you're like, "Oh, so it's not just me." Like other people, it's confirming. It's very affirming to the mission, and to the purpose. Like because Blackman Hill is not about me. I say that all the time. It does fulfill me, but it's not about me. So I like that, the men are like getting seen in this way, or like the importance of servicing them is being at the forefront right now.
Got you. All right, so let's rewind a little bit. Let's go back. Tell us about you and how you got to the point of creating Blackman Hill.
So I don't know. Did you mention that I'm a therapist, or did I mention that? So I'm in private practice. So I've been a therapist for 15 years, in different realms. I've worked in different settings, throughout therapy for the past 15 years. But for the past 5 years, I've been in private practice, and I love therapy. I love helping people. I love being on the front row seat to watching people's journeys, watching people's transformations. I feel like my job is I have a front row seat to watching that and knowing how much change and transformation is possible. So in that experience, I grow a lot, but I love when men come in. I'm a couples therapist, is how I'm trained, and so I would see men as a part of a couple, but I would also see them individually as well. But I just didn't feel like I was seeing enough men, and every time I did therapy with the male, I felt like I learned and so much that I didn't know. I feel like it kind of expanded my lens because I got to experience men in a different way in the therapy room than perhaps outside of the therapy room, because they were very vulnerable. Um, and there were so many layers there, and they were so communicative. And it was just like the therapy room was a safe space. And it made me realize that when men have a safe space, they can be incredibly vulnerable in a way that the world might not recognize them. And I wanted more men to just have that opportunity, and I wasn't getting enough men. And therapy is expensive. I don't take insurance. Well, I take like one or two insurances, but therapy is very expensive. And I felt like the men who I was seeing could afford to spend $150 a session. And although I was grateful for that, it still felt like I was a part of a system that made me feel conflicted, a part of a system where in order to get quality therapy, you had to be able to afford $150 a session. And that just doesn't feel right to me. So it kind of, those are all the things that were just like weighing on me. And so I just was like, what if I just offered pro bono therapy to a male? And I originally was going to do that for myself and my own practice, and just kind of like put it out on my like Facebook page, like a campaign around that. Because the other thing, a part of that around that time, because I used my social media page for like, my practice, was that I was recognizing that doing therapy with men is different. Male depression looks very different from female depression. And
How
so
so?
you said how so?
Yes.
Um, when men are depressed, for example, like well, it's underdiagnosed, because a lot of times what you might see is like an increase in aggressiveness or risky behaviors or withdrawal or physical pain. So the way in which men present as depressed, are we allowed to curse on here? Like, is this a
Speak freely. Speak freely.
oh, okay. When men are depressed, they might just be experienced or perceived as an asshole, right? And so they might not often, because they might be more irritable, right? Or more withdrawn, or just like, like they might be more difficult, to deal with in relationship. And also like, so like, and they can also might like lose interest in sex. So, and the risky behavior part. So, an increase in drinking, gambling, sex, infidelity. It's a lot of behaviors that come with that. So, a lot of times that's not recognized a lot. And if you think about that, that is very similar to what this whole idea of toxic masculinity is. So, sometimes when we're experiencing men in this toxic way, we might just focus on the toxicness of that, right? But not understand the underlying layers of what is causing some of those toxic behaviors. And sometimes that is undiagnosed mental health stuff. So, I was trying to do a lot of education around that. And I was like, okay, I think the world kind of needs to know that. And I just wanted, yeah, I wanted that opportunity for a male. I was like, I'm gonna start a campaign, basically, like just myself and my own IG. I'm gonna start a campaign for the importance of men and mental health, and I'm gonna kind of like offer, around this campaign will be an offering of one lucky male will win pro bono therapy with me. And as the idea kind of spun out, I was just like, yeah, I wonder if there's other therapists who believe enough in this who would also be willing to do a pro bono session for a male. Um, and that's kind of how it spun from like a individual thing into me being like, maybe there's more therapists, and maybe this can turn into a thing where we can help people on a mass scale. And that's how I was born.
Gotcha. I mean, that's pretty amazing. So you went from one thing to how many people have you serviced? How many men has Black Men Hill serviced so far?
Well, up to date so far, it's been about 70. You the math dude. So 569 divided by 8. What's that? Like 70 something? I think it's like
Something like that. I would have to
yeah.
use my calculator.
Okay. All right.
I have
So
to use
yeah,
my
like
calculator for
I think
everything.
it's like 72, but so we donated 569 sessions prior to cohort 5. But this cohort 5 we just started, which the Charlemagne sponsored cohort is the largest one we've had. 37 men just got into this cohort. That is the largest number of men we've ever serviced in a cohort.
Mhm.
And we had 24 providers. That's the largest number of providers we've ever had. So if we, after the end of this cohort, so then it'll be like 37 times 8, like, God willing, they all get through the 8 sessions. So it's going to grow exponentially. We're growing so much that it's amazing. But let me just say this. Cohort 5, the Charlemagne sponsored cohort, is the very first cohort in which the therapist will be paid. So I got to give a shout out to all of the volunteer. Prior to today, there had been we accomplished that those 569 sessions with therapists who believed in this mission and therapists who believed in these men, and they volunteered their time, they donated it, and no one was paid. And so again, now we're starting to build funding, but I will never not the proudest thing that when people ask me, what are you most proud about with Black Men Hill? It's like that we've gotten here with nothing. We didn't have any money, or we didn't have any funding. And then what it taught me was that if there is a collective coming together for a cause, you don't have to wait for anybody or any opportunity to do what you need to do for your community, right? And that's the biggest lesson. And so I know we're growing, but at the same time, it's like cohorts 1 through 4 will always be so special to me because everyone who showed up in those cohorts showed up because of the love. There was no currency exchange other than like love, passion, blood, sweat, and tears. And it's just something about a mission like that. Being around that is so inspiring.
I mean, but I think you said something right there that's really magical and really powerful. You said that we don't have to wait on anybody to do anything. We can be the change we want to see.
Absolutely.
And so your project went from, maybe offering one man one session to delivering over 500 sessions to Black men to help increase or help improve their mental health. That's a lot. That's
That's a lot.
now that's a testimony right there. So, congratulations. And
Thank you.
I'm proud to say that. I'm proud of what you're doing. But
Oh,
what was it that gave you the guts, the courage, um, to Miss Edith, I saw that question. Give me 1 second. But what gave you the guts and courage to say this can be bigger than me, and then ask for help from other people?
that's a great question, Countess, because you're about to have me on the couch. Um, I don't like to ask for help. The reason why that's a great question is because even as you're asking, I'm like, yeah, because I struggle with asking for help. That's been a big issue for me, right? I like to just not feel like a burden to people. A vision is what it is. Like I was out running one day, and it was Sahikin, and like so as all these ideas started to come to me, everything came to me. The name Blackman Hill came to me, BMH came to me, and a vision. I guess the best way I remember I was listening to J. Cole, that intro song. I mean, this is so crazy as I don't think you're getting an exclusive because I've never mentioned all of these details on any of these interviews. The intro song on J. Cole on Forest Hills Drives. Like that was the song I was listening to when I was running. And a vision. I saw every single thing that's happening for Blackman Hill right now. Like I saw the vision. I knew it would be big. I saw the outcomes. Like I was like, it's going to be huge, and we're going to change the mental health care system, and it's going to be so powerful, and it's going to be like this legacy, and it's going to be like almost like an NAACP, and we're going to be the hub, and it's going to exist all over the country. I mean, when I tell you I saw all of this, some of the things I saw I won't say because they haven't quite come into manifestation yet, but because of the way the journey is coming, some of this I was like, I saw this in my vision. But the vision just like put some type of, what I like to say is like I was the vessel for the vision. And the vision put some type of fire under me because I have stretched way outside of my personal comfort zone and capacity to do what needs to be done for Blackman Hill in a way that me, Tasneem Suleiman, I'm like, I'm not asking nobody to help me do nothing. So the fact that I asked a whole lot of somebody's to help do something like accomplish almost 600 free sessions is not me. Like that's God, that's energy, that's the universe, that is the vision, that is the purpose that is driving me. So I don't know if I'm that courageous to answer your question. I think it's just that I think Blackman Hill is such a special thing that I feel so honored to service it that it makes me come outside of my comfort zone, I guess.
Okay. So I want you to answer this question. Ms. Edith asks, are they licensed therapists, social workers, etc., volunteering, servicing the consumers?
Yes. So we take licensed therapists and we take unlicensed therapists, which is the other thing that's just so amazing about what we're doing because we're creating a whole network of therapists, Black therapists, to become licensed. So Blackman Hill is not just helping the target population. I believe that we are helping to create more Black therapists as well, because there's a lot of therapists who might be qualified to do therapy, but there's a lot of bull crap around the mental health system and the licensure and things like that. And so we take both. Unlicensed therapists is a great opportunity to build clinical hours towards your licensure, to get the training of how to start your own business, because a lot of our therapists, we've been helping them build their practices and build their businesses, because a lot of the clients turn into paid clients and they give the therapist referrals. I remember one therapist volunteered with her. She was licensed, but she was trying to start a practice, but she had a full-time job and was still kind of afraid. And when she first started with Blackman Hill, she didn't have anybody in her practice. And she took, I think, one or two of our men. And by like the next cohort, she was like full. She was like, oh, I would love to volunteer still, but I don't really have time. I was like, that's so amazing. Like, how amazing is that she didn't have time because she had so many paid clients, because she said yes to volunteering to Blackman Hill. You know what I mean? So that just made me feel amazing. So we offer free supervision and we help train and to catapult unlicensed therapists to get to the place of being licensed. So I just feel like it's a twofold thing. We're helping the men, but we're also helping this whole other network and generation of therapists as well.
But I want to pick up on something, or you talked about the lady that did something for free. All right. Everybody in the comments type free. I don't know how many of you all watch me every week, but if you've been watching me for a while, I always talk about the power of free. Many of us follow many so-called gurus that say, get your money. Nothing's free. Your time costs, your education costs. And they all do. They all do. But there's a lot of value in giving something for free when you believe in it, when you're not trying to pimp the system or pimp the opportunity for your own advancement or comeuppance, right? Because again, the saying it's better to give than receive, again, there's a lot of power in it, but I don't really think we really sit and meditate on those words. And so we just kind of fleece over them and run over them and we follow the guidance of, again, a lot of
Mhm.
wrong people. But imagine if all of us just took an hour out of the month and gave an hour free of whatever God-given gift, talent, or ability
Mhm.
you might have, and how your overall community would change. That would be an automatic benefit to yourself. You might not see it right now. Many of us can't see that far, don't have the vision to go that far, but I'm telling you, do something for free for somebody. It's one of the most gratifying things you could ever do. So
Let me just co-sign on that a little bit more because like I'm not on salary for Blackman Hill yet, and it haven't been paid for any of the work. And I mean, when I tell you I worked 60-hour weeks for doing this, right? And when I think of when I first started the vision and as it started to grow, I'm like, there's no way I can do that. I don't have the time. I'm a very busy woman. Like I was already running a business. I'm a single mom. I'm like, I was doing adjunct. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I was like, there's just no time for that. Right. So I don't know where the time came from, but I will say this. I was like, if somebody would have presented to me, oh, you're about to, like, literally, even though you have no time, you're about to be donating 40 hours a week in additional time for free, I would have been like, are you crazy? There's no way. I can't afford to. My practice that pays my bills never has been flourishing as much as it was when I started doing what I'm doing for Blackman Hill, because I just kept thinking, like, how am I doing so well financially when I'm, working more over here for free? So I like what you're saying, which is like there's some stuff for free, but it's certain things like it's really not free, because I've never felt so rich and so fulfilled.
absolutely.
And it's been amazing. It's been an amazing journey.
Well, I use free because the general market, the general people always say it's free and they got a bill to pay and yada yada yada. One thing I learned from my mentor, he said, if you're down and out and you're like broke, one of the best things you can do is go volunteer somewhere and just
Absolutely.
totally give of
Absolutely.
yourself.
Yes.
And I preach that, I live that, I walk, I talk that, and a lot of people want to fight me on that. And I said, if your whole meaning and your whole goal is about money, there's something wrong with that. And I know that comes out counterintuitive, especially since I am the finance rebel. But the rebel part in that is the real power part,
Hmm.
because you understand the nuance and the intangibles that really can come to light and then become tangible when you take action on them. But again, enough about me. You triggered me, right? But Mr. Douglas brought up something. He's in my head right now because I was going to ask the question, because I know you also are not setting this up as your typical nonprofit. You're thinking about revenue models, which means how this nonprofit can make money. Because I meet so many nonprofits that are only thinking about getting grants. They're only thinking about getting donations. You sell merchandise, right? I tell a lot of my nonprofits to sell merchandise because you don't know when a grant's going to come. But what brought that thought about that said, you know what, we need to do more than just wait on grants and donations?
I'm glad you said that, because Blackman Hill, too, as of this date, has never received a grant or a donation. I mean, we've received private donations and merchandise sales, but we've never even received a grant. Um, because, number one, and also let me say, I didn't have any nonprofit experience. I had business experience, but not, and I had successful businesses, but the nonprofit is a whole different game, right? But for me, maybe the shirts came about because I was used to selling, because I had the business experience with that. But also, I loved our logo, which I have the logo shirt one now. I loved our logo. Um, and I knew that, like, just selling merchandise from a business entrepreneur, like if you have something attached to that, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, we can make money with that. And also, our merch is dope. I'm like, of course, people want to wear our merch, right? Like, we have some really good stuff. So it was just like that whole, again, the waiting, because when you start a nonprofit, there's all of these steps. Like, if you're just dependent upon the grants, and I would say this for any business as an entrepreneur, never just depend on one source of income, because yeah, like that's, or like if you're waiting on one source, you're gonna have troubles with that, right? And so you have to think of how to be diversified in anything that you do, that you're trying to do, anything that you're trying to start. So the merchandise, I mean, when I said we was on a struggle bus, that was just a way of like, all right, we can earn this, we can earn that. And we didn't earn a ton of off the merchandise. I mean, we went on a breakfast club, and then we really got slammed with the merchandise. But I just also loved. I also thought it was like a walking billboard. Like, you're selling your brand. If you are building a brand, you want to sell your brand. You want people to see your brand and recognize it. And so, anytime anybody wears our shirts, they are, selling our
Advertising.
brand. And men tell us, like, we have this one shirt that says "Black men need hugs," and at first men was like, "I'm not wearing that. That seems soft." And then a couple of them was like, "All right, I'm gonna wear it." And so then Taj was like, "Yo, every time I wear that shirt, people come up to me." Like, he started telling other brothers, "When I wear that, people come up to me, like, women be like, 'Yo, bro, you need a
Yo,
hug?'"
I was just about to say, if I was single, I would wear that shirt every day. You would
Yo,
probably meet so many ladies.
you meet so many ladies. And also, he was like, he was walking near his shop one day in Fishtown. He said it was like a white guy walking his dog and was like, "Yo, bro, you need a hug?" And so he started telling that story, I think, at one of our fundraisers or something like that. And then all of a sudden, all the guys was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna get that," because at first that was like the least selling one. Then that became like the best selling one, right? So it was so interesting. But I just think our merch is dope, to be honest. I mean, of course I'm biased, but it really is dope because when people like it and they buy it. So that's a great way when you're waiting for grants. I applied for a grant. I applied for one grant, didn't get it, and my whole life was crushed. I was like, "Oh my God, I feel like such a failure." And I'm like, that's just too much for me. Like, and maybe because I came from a different business lens, like just asking somebody for something and then them saying no, and then that having the power to mentally and emotionally like devastate me. I'm like, ain't nobody got time for that. Like, I don't have time to wait on that.
Yeah, but I mean, being able to deal with no's is basic business 101. Because at some point you're going to have to ask for the sale, or at
Right.
least create a process that asks for the sale at some point. So no is just no. It's nothing personal. Nine
Well,
times
I'm learning that now, as
right.
you know. In our sessions, when I be on the couch, I'm learning all
We
this
don't have sessions. Stop that. Because then they're gonna be like, Kamari, are you a licensed therapist? Like, do you really have a couch? And I'm like, no.
No, I mean, well, sometimes I do be laying, but no. In our financial rebel therapist sessions, when I am the client, I am learning so much. So yeah, it's a growth. It's a process. It's a journey, and it's a beautiful journey. And that's the other thing too. I've learned too about this process of like, we always joke, "Oh, we was on the struggle bus." I still consider us on the struggle bus, but I'm like, the struggle is a beautiful thing. I'm learning so many lessons from the struggle. Like, I would not have these lessons if I was not getting the struggle. Like, and so that is the gift. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's becoming kind of cliche at this point to say, it's about the journey, not the destination. But it really is.
It is.
It really is, because that's where all the lessons are. There's a book out there called "The Only Way Is Through." I can't think of the name of it,
Hmm.
but the
I
only
didn't
way
know that.
really
The
is
only
through.
way out is through. I say that to my clients all the time when it comes to emotions, when people are trying to avoid uncomfortable and difficult emotions. It's like emotions the only way out is through. Like, so when you want to get over something, like, and people are like, I tell people all the time, the best way to do is walk through the fire, because people are like the analogy I use is people are spending their whole lives on, like, like this side of the fire, and they want to get to the other side, but they're like, how do I get around it without going through? Because the fire might burn. And it's like, there is no way around it. Like, you got to just go through. Like, you got to kind of get the burn, but on the other side, you're going to be like, wow. And so many people are spending their lives on this side of the fire because they're so afraid of getting the burn. So the no's, the struggle, the journey, the late nights, the lack of sleep, it's all about that's the burn. Like, that's all that you have to have in order to get to it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great analogy. I was going to say something else, referring to somebody else that kind of used the firewalk, but I don't want to talk about them. Um,
I know
but
you're
yeah,
talking about, and I know you say like the
I don't want to talk
houses.
about them.
Okay.
But I mean, I think that's true, right? Because sometimes we try to avoid it, right? We try to sidestep it, and that's okay too, right? Being strategic about things, but there's one thing with being strategic, and there's another thing about just totally being afraid and discouraged by going through that fire and figuring it
Mhm.
out. So I totally agree. So what has you? I mean, I know Black Men Hill has you excited, but what has you really excited right now in this state of Black Men Hill?
Um, the growth, man. Growth is a beautiful thing. The growth is unbelievable. The opportunities, the people coming to us. That's another part of it. Okay, so this is the other thing I want to say to your listeners. In the beginning, when I was asking for help, there is a lot. We're here because of the people who said yes. But don't get it twisted. There's a whole lot of people who I feel like technically, should have said yes, who did not, who wouldn't even answer the door. And I was shocked about it because I was like, how could that person or this person who is all about this, how could this person not step up, right? So to be honest, I stopped knocking on people's doors who I felt like could give me a bigger opportunity. The people who said no were the people who I knew had access to more opportunity to help us leverage. The people who said yes, what they had to give and offer was their time and their service, right? They wasn't like a big name person that was taking me to connect me to this major grant or this major senator or anything like that. But um so we've kind of learned to we're a very humble organization. And I've been realizing this over the past week in a couple of meetings because I'm like, we really don't flex. We don't really say all that we are accomplishing, right? And when I've gone, so in the past month or 2 months, some of the opportunities that have come to me or come to us, the meetings I've had, I've been like, how could that person know who we are? How could that huge mega house organization be wanting a meeting with us and we didn't even seek them out? That has me in awe and gratitude and in just like wow, and in prayer and just thankfulness. But so we've had that. Oh, I can announce this now. I haven't announced this, so I'm announcing it first on your show because you already know about this and you
I
helped me.
do.
You know about this and you helped me get here. But we got our first major corporate sponsorship, Harry's, a men's shaving brand. I'm so excited about that. And so that is like huge for us. And that's amazing. I mean, it's just so amazing. And so I'm very, very thrilled about that. And also because the what Harry stands for and what they do in their process of giving is also in direct alignment with what we want and the long-term commitment. It's very important to me right now about partnerships and collaborations that people are in alignment with our values and our long-term commitment to our service and to our target population and to our communities because this, we're not going to talk, in too much in details, but there's been some mega houses that have come and like, I was like, no thanks, because I was not getting a sense of they had long-term commitment to our people. They were kind of, I didn't, if I don't feel that, if I don't feel like it aligns with us, I'm okay with saying no, even though we might need that name or that leveraging. And for me, I'm like, we got here with us and we don't have to compromise on that, like, not for a paycheck. And so that feels good too, to be in that position. That is what makes me very excited to know that we're not going to lose the essence of how we got here. And it feels good to know that we're okay with being slow and steady, right? In order to make sure that our that we are not exploited and that our target population will never be exploited.
Got you. Got you. Can you talk about the partnership with Harry's at all?
Well, I guess I can because the contract is signed, right? Like some of the other stuff, I've been careful not to mention any other names of
By
talk,
the way,
but
congratulations. I didn't know that
yes,
was
the
finalized.
contract is signed, and so we're gonna be, like we will be putting that out soon because we're gonna be announcing, and they will be announcing soon. But um, yeah, Harry's called us, and they were looking for Harry's is a men's shaving brand, and they specifically give a percentage of their sales to nonprofit organizations. They've donated $4.5 million to nonprofit organizations thus far, and so they do this work. And they were doing it way before COVID and the George Floyd murder. Some huge organizations are kind of jumping on the, oh, we gotta stand in solidarity with Black Lives Matter. But Harry's has been doing this work, and they have been aligning with organizations that align with their values that service men. So they're doing a specific campaign around mental health. A lot of people are focusing on mental health right now. So they wanted to partner with organizations who are servicing men's mental health. So like, of course, like that's us, right? But yeah, so I'm so excited about that, and I hope that it's going to be like a long term. I can't wait to show Harry's all that we're going to do and impact from their fiscal sponsorship. So there's a lot of plans underway that we're like really getting to the point we needed to be. I didn't think we would be here in 2 years, right? Like I said, a year and a half of my 2 year journey, Blackman Hill did not have not a dollar for a year and a half of a 2 year journey. So to be here, I mean, I would have thought a major corporate sponsorship would have come 5, 6 years down the line. But like to be here now is like, wow, unbelievable.
Yo, Douglas is hilarious. Douglas is about to be my new BFF.
What he say?
He said it's Harry's on the stock market. If so, what? Oh, that wasn't the one I saw. I saw congrats, BMA's accountants could be an excellent model for the beer products.
Accountants. Yes, D Reed. Isn't that a good name? That's my team member right there.
Oh
My
God,
big
yeah,
brother. D Reed. Isn't that, do you like my name? Because Kamari does not like accountants, and I like it.
yeah. It sounds like mistress. I don't know. But I think Douglas makes a good or asked a good question here. So he asked, how much of starting a new business is based on the credentials of others or the discernment inside of you within in individuals, or discernment inside you have within individuals? So I don't know if that question is for me or for you, Taz.
Repeat the question again. How much what?
How much of starting a new business is based on credentials
Oh.
of others or the discernment inside you have with an individual? So I'll take it as you think about it. So I think it's both.
I think it's both too. Yeah, I was just about to say both. Say, bro, you still in my answer, but go ahead. Let me hear your breakdown on this, and I'm gonna give mine.
So I mean, for everybody here who normally watches me, right, I'm really big on being qualified. And there's several levels to being qualified, right? So I didn't talk about Taz's educational background, but she's a college graduate, did all the training, graduate of Temple University. I'm telling her story now, not her, but she's qualified to do what she does. So I usually like to prove to the audience that a person should be qualified, right?
Mhm.
We don't want chefs doing brain surgery on us. We don't want Big Mama who makes great macaroni and cheese and fried chicken doing brain surgery on us. She's qualified for the one thing, but not qualified for the other. And that doesn't make Big Mama any less or more of a human being or have value. Is we all have lanes. Now at some point, Big Mama can shift, right? She has that power, right? And I say power specifically, she has that power to change her mind and do something else. But right now, that ain't it. Brain surgery ain't her lane. Now, I do believe discernment about other people is very important. And I do believe that if you can read people really well, it's important. But I'll say this. There's a gentleman by the name of Trevor Ott. And he says Black folks have an affinity and a love with their own labor. Meaning that if we don't do the work or have done the work, we won't pursue the venture. And he uses a great example. He talks about Trevor, the founder of Uber. And he said Trevor never drove a taxi, but he had this great idea of car sharing and basically the new generation or the remix of taxis. And he created that. So you don't necessarily have to do the thing that you're promoting or selling, but you should have an understanding of it, a deep understanding, and not
Mm-hmm.
just some frivolous, fleeting thing saying, "Oh, I can do this. I can fly a plane," but never took any flight instructions. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's both. I think it's both. There's a lot of people that are called, and oftentimes miss their calling because they're afraid because they don't believe they're qualified, but they also won't take the time to become qualified.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
and so we can make the argument that Taz isn't qualified to run a nonprofit, right? But I believe it's a Bible saying, and I'm not trying to be biblical on y'all, right?
Mm.
The scripture says a man's gifts will open up rooms to important men, something like that. Or a man's gifts will make room for him to meet important people, right? We know the Bible was very misogynistic. Don't hate me on that. There's just a fact. So women, men, people in general who use their gifts in a positive manner, sometimes in a negative manner, but in a positive manner, will be able to use their gifts and leverage their gifts to get access to people that are
Mm.
of quote unquote bigger stature. So I believe that's what Taz has done.
Oh my
And
God.
she's qualified. So you got a twofer. You're qualified, you have the discernment, and you have the gifts. So
Thank you so
that
much, bro.
that's what I believe.
I,
But what
I
was your answer
wow.
since I stole
Okay,
you?
so I mean, I agree with you around that. I think that yeah, I was definitely very qualified in the mental health realm and in the business. Like, I mean, I haven't had like a 9 to 5 since like '09. I've been a womanpreneur for over 10 years. So I was used to the ups and the downs of the of business and had been stable through it, right? So I'm like, okay, so I survived that. Mental health is what I know. That's what I do. That's my baby. I understood every aspect. I've worked in all of these different aspects of the system of mental health before finally going private. So then that gave me the lens of how to build out that program, right? But what I did not have any qualifications or experience in was running a nonprofit, right? And when I first started Blackman Hill and the vision of it, I used to tell people like, I'm just trying to get Blackman Hill to the point where we could get the most qualified executive director and I could do this role. But this is not the role I'm supposed to be doing because I don't have any experience or qualifications with that, right? And I remember you and I was talking about this, Kamari, because like since then now, of course, I'm like, really wanting to transition full time into, being the executive director of Blackman Hill. Go figure. And a lot of other people kept telling me that, like, oh, you're gonna eventually. And I was like, no, 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 no. I'm gonna be doing my practice, and now, of course, I'm there, right? Where I'm like, oh, this is like, I have to do this. But I feel like even not having the experience with the nonprofit and having to learn all of those steps as I go, like, I mean, learning every single day as I go, right? But I also know that when I go into the meetings with some of these powerhouses, that I'm like, I can't even believe that person called me for a meeting. I know that no one is going to have the discernment for Blackman Hill in the way in which myself or like Zakia does, right? Like I know that we are the heart and soul. That's what people walk away and say to us. Like I just had a really important meeting last week and they hung up and was like, this is your baby. I was like, yeah, this is my baby. That's the discernment. That's the passion. That's the gift. The like people know, wow. Like when it's your baby, think about it as a parent. When it's your baby and you have the discernment, like this is my job to make sure that my baby is going to be okay and protected and nobody's going to hurt my baby or exploit it. You come with a different level of vigor then, right? And so I believe both. And I also believe that so it's a lot of people jumping on the free therapy movement now, right? Because it is a wonderful, beautiful idea. It is a way to combat the broken mental health system. But I'm also realizing that, nobody's doing what we're doing because it's taken me 2 years. When I was building this, it did not exist. All, we're not just doing free therapy. There's a lot of moving parts to Blackman Hill that people, we probably don't even put out all like that people don't really understand, that it's taken me the 2 years of sleepless nights and a sacrifice to be able to build, and that it's taken 4 or 5 cohorts, because every time you do it, you have to get better at it. But then there's this whole mental health lens of it, of how do you how do you decide who's going to get the free therapy if you got 40 slots and you got 200 men? What's the decision process? How do you assess people's mental health to even know if they're going to be a good fit? Our secret sauce really is the matching system, and the way in which we're matching up clients and therapists, and the way in which we're getting our outcome data. So there's a lot of moving parts. The way in which we match up the men and make sure that they have a good therapeutic relationship is a labor of love in itself, because we really see them, we really pay attention to them and those processes, and all of that has come from discernment, not from experience. So I say both.
Gotcha. Well, why do you say the mental health system is broken?
Same reasons why most structural systems in our country are broken. Oppression, capitalism, racism, all types of things. The Just like the regular healthcare system, but there's a couple reasons. One, because, all right, so I'm trying to think of the best way to break this down. Okay, so if you have insurance, right? So let's say you have managed healthcare insurance, right? Like, what is that? Like state insurance, and for therapy, you might go. And this, I'm not trying to knock any agency or whatever. Okay, this is the best example. Let me make it about me. That's how you not knock anybody else. You make it about you. So when I used to work in managed mental health care, like, at that time, they would want you to, like, it was a 40-hour work week. They scheduled you with 40 clients a week because there was a 50% no-show rate. And by scheduling with 40, they was hoping that you would at least get 20, right? Um, and so if you have 40 clients on your case, so at one point, eventually you might have 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 cases on your caseload that you're responsible for. That is very overwhelming, right? It's extremely overwhelming. And I would argue, you just cannot do good quality care if you are responsible for that much paperwork, right? Because in that system, it is really about those numbers and about that paperwork. And at that time, I knew I can't focus on being a good clinician when I have this type of weight on my shoulders, right? And I hated work. I was like, dang, did I choose the wrong career? And eventually it took me some time to be like, no, I didn't choose the wrong career. I knew I didn't want to work for anybody, right? So luckily I got out of the working world very early after getting in. I was still young, but I was just like, it was just like archaic, the systems. Like, I was anti-systems, because I was like, those systems are not really about helping and healing the way in which I really feel my heart is aligned in doing. And I can't do that here under the system. So I had to go. But so that's one reason why it's broken, is because of the overwork and underpay within the system for the providers. The other thing is insurance. Insurance. So if anybody's listening and they, like, let's say you actually go to see a therapist in private practice, because the difference between seeing a managed healthcare, where you're going to get burnt out therapists there, so you might not get quality. Not to say they're not good therapists, but you're going to be getting a lot of burnt out therapists. Private practice, and then it's like this other issue where it's like, well, and myself, I'm a part of this. In private practice, it costs over $100 a session to see somebody. Who could always pay that? And then you're trying to find a therapist who looks like you. It's like, they're full, or they don't take insurance. You might have insurance, but a lot of people, most of my clientele have insurance. I just don't take insurance, so they pay me, right? Because I'm who they want to see.
Why
So
don't you take
even though,
insurance?
what you say?
Why don't you take insurance?
That's what I was gonna get into, which is because the insurance system is just also a bunch of bullcrap. Number one, like, they control your rate, so they're going to give you a universal rate. So they will tell you, which is very much so lower than your worth. Um, and on top of that, then there's like all of this stuff. There's all of this. They underpay, right? So they're going to underpay the providers. And then you got to do a whole lot to even get paid for the underpayment, right? And if you are focused on quality therapy and you don't want that to be dictated by insurance companies also want you to give your clients a diagnosis. They might control whether, oh, you can see that client 20 sessions per year, but you as the provider, let's say you're the doctor, you're the person who knows the 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 issue, the health issue the best, and you are the one trained with how to treat it. Insurance companies, it's about the money, right? So if I don't want somebody telling me, oh, this client can have 20 sessions um for the year, and I'm like, but this client have layers, especially people from our communities, we have layers and layers of generational trauma, right? To unpack. 20 sessions might not be enough. So you don't want the restrictions of the insurance companies dictating, and you don't want to have to, see double the amount of clients for less pay just to be able to make a living, like, because then it's kind of like the other system. So that's why a lot of people in private practice don't take insurance. But that's a broken system too, because I also feel like, which is why, my heart got conflicted around starting a Blackman Hill, is because I knew that I was now complicit. Like, I had went from this part of the system to this part of the system, and I'm like, now I'm complicit on this other capitalism lens, and that doesn't feel great to me either. There has to be something that is not this, that is also not this, but that is also like meeting the need of the client, as well as able to meet the needs of the provider. Like, there has to be a system that could, like, in a perfect world, do both. Blackman Hill is a system that does both. Shout out to Blackman Hill,
Absolutely,
though.
Jonathan. Um, your other fan is here. Your comedian guy is here. My guy is here. Charles Tank Harris comes through with the jokes as he always does.
What up, Tank?
So he says, Kamari sounds like Darth Vader. I thought Allah just asked that question.
Here he come with his jokes and whatnot.
Listen, you gotta love Tank. You gotta love Tank. Shout out to Tank. There were a couple other questions that I saw that we didn't get to yet. I have two questions for you. I know you just got your hair slayed, so I don't want to take up your entire afternoon because
I gotta go be
it all on
clean,
me.
okay? I gotta get in the shower.
Yeah, I know you don't want to waste that on me. But I have two questions. Mental health. When should someone go seek out a provider?
What? I'm sorry. Repeat that. When's the what?
Mental health, as it relates to mental health. When should someone seek out a provider?
It's a great question. It's a great question. And I remember doing a video on this of like signs of, like, people maybe needing therapy. Basically, one some of the more less common ways is like you feel stuck in some way. You feel hopeless. You feel constantly overwhelmed. We all get stressed, right? So we all are going to experience stress because life is stressful. But when you find yourself getting stuck, that stress is like expanding to the place of like you're there all the time. It's affecting your regular functioning. You're not yourself. You don't feel like yourself. Or your relationships, that's a big one. Relationships suffer. You're not showing up in the same way in your relationships, whether it be work, partnership, romantic partnership, with your children, with your friends, isolating, withdrawing, um, sleeping a lot or difficulty sleeping, difficulty making decisions, difficulty following through, feeling down, depressed, feeling fearful, having a lot of like fears that something really horrible is going to happen. So there's a lot of different reasons. Or like one day you feel really like you can't explain your moods. Like your moods are like kind of just like fluctuating a lot. And the other thing is recurrent. Oh, this is a big one. Disproportionate reactivity. Disproportionate reactivity. Like, my daughter spilled uh this actually just happened, and I probably did have disproportionate reactivity. My daughter's eating in the in the living room, but she's 9 and kids are doing stuff, and there's crumbs all over, and I like my response. Yes, I have a right to be upset. I've told you not to eat in the the living room. But my response is like a level 100. I'm yelling, screaming. I say things to my baby that might actually really affect her, or like I get explosive. It's disproportionate to that situation. I might be giving a level 10 to what really needs a level 3 response or reaction. So when you find yourself always angry and explosive, it's not that much angry in the world. Like there's something else going on underlying that. Is not just because somebody cut you off. That's going to happen sometimes. But it's the way in which you're responding, your responses and your reactions, when they're disproportionately high or disproportionately under, like minimized.
But as a follow-up to that, what if that behavior was modeled for you? Like
That's
your
a
mom
great
always
question.
blew up, your
That's a
dad
great
always blew up, your grandma, nana, pop, they always blew up at you. And that's how you know how to do those things.
Absolutely. And that's so real, because that is normally the case. That's another one. A lot of times, like sometimes people don't even know that those responses are not okay. A lot of times you'll get signs that those responses are not okay. Again, relationship is a good way, because how are people experiencing me, right? Have I had, if I want a successful relationship and yet I keep, you know, relationship after relationship, I keep being attracted to or drawn to the same type of dynamics, and it's toxic here and it's toxic there, and all my friends are toxic, and I cut this person off, cut that person off, cut that person off. So it's like recurring toxic relationships is a sign that like you got to look at your own way in which you're showing up, what your attachment styles is. And a lot of times the reason why therapy is important is because a lot of times it is directly connected to what did you learn? How did you learn how to be responsive? How did you learn how to deal with emotions or regulate your emotions? Most of us haven't learned that.
Oh, we're
Like,
talking accountability now. So we're talking
yeah,
accountability. Uh,
people don't really know. Like emotional regulation is a huge thing that I talk about a lot in therapy. But learning how to regulate and what to do with your emotions, most people are wanting to avoid their emotions that are uncomfortable, or explode and react and have disproportionate reactivity, which can land you with a whole lot more different consequences, right? A lot of the violence that we see, a lot of people making impulsive decisions, those are disproportionate reactivities because you felt upset about something and you didn't know how to regulate out that emotion to let it pass. The way we were saying, it needs to pass through in order to pass out. People
right,
don't let it pass through. They like, no, F that. I'm gonna go handle that. But going
right.
to handle that sometimes is going to result in more consequences for you or for your family member who is dependent on you.
Gotcha. All right. And last question, and I'll let you go because you're starting to make me feel bad.
Wait, why?
Because you fanning. I got you out over there.
Oh, no. Oh, but see, now I'm into it. I'm into it now. So like,
Okay.
I'm good.
All right. It's all good. Okay. What advice would you give other nonprofit owners, starters, people who are thinking about it at this point right now?
Mm. That's a good one. You got me stumped now. I feel stuck because I'm like, hey, do I have any advice? Because I feel like I'm still learning my journey so much.
Okay, so let me rephrase it.
Yeah,
What did you learn that you wish you knew? What have you learned so far that you wish you knew at the beginning?
that's a good. What have I learned that I wish I knew? I think I would have a lot of the things, like getting everything in order. I decided to start the service before everything was in order, because my heart, when you start a nonprofit, your heart is in it. Whatever your cause is, you're like, I just want to help people. And so like when I first started, as I announced in July, we was doing free therapy. We put it out on Instagram. Hey, free therapy, fellas. And we got slammed. And because I believed that it was going to be hard to get Black men to come into therapy, and I got slammed, and like right away, I think we had 50 men that was like, oh, I want it. And I was like, oh, we got 4 therapists. I didn't expect to get 4 men. I thought that, the world, the media would have me believe that Black men don't go to therapy. So I wasn't expecting it. Now, what it taught me was I didn't have the foundation set up before I just went and announced the way in which I wanted to help the service, right? Because I was like, oh, now we got to pause. A lot of men You'll hear a lot of men that might have been like, oh yeah, I tried to get in Blackman Hill. I was on the waiting list for 2 months. And that's what we're doing now, is making sure that those systems run a little bit smoother, recognizing that I needed to really first build out the system before I go offer the service. Sometimes if you go offer the service too quick, and mind you, because I was like, I ain't waiting for money, I ain't waiting for nobody, I'm just offering my service, right? And it's been a gift and a curse because on the one hand, we have offered 569 sessions, right? But right now we're doing some of the systems, getting them in order. Well, we also didn't have the money to get them systems in order. Let me just say that too, but now we do. But we're getting some of those systems in order, that if those systems and the foundation and the way everything is going to work had been set up in the beginning, I think that's what I would have done differently. So think things through. Oh, and read and research. I did do that. I did do a lot of reading and researching, and found a lot of great books about how to run a nonprofit and what that looks like and the steps that you have to do. And and I also mission development. I used the development team. So I took my team and the board, like, so we went and got trained. So educate yourself. So back to that question of like, do you need the qualifications? I knew I didn't have the qualifications. So I did do a lot of reading and researching, and I would have done even more if I could go back.
Okay, that was awesome. So Miss Edith says she wants to volunteer. If you'll have her.
Oh, where's she located?
I want to say Miss Edith is in the BX. She's in the Bronx, I want to say.
Yes, Miss Edith, we need you. We just expanded to New York. Can you please send us an email at info@blackmanhill.org? Cohort 5 is shut down, but we will be starting cohort 6. We'll be opening that up and ready to kind of get that up and underway, like September. So we need New York providers because we just expanded out. For if anybody's listening in New Jersey, we need more New Jersey providers. We need more Delaware providers, and we're doing the NYC. And hopefully by next year, we want to expand to a couple more states. So yes, Miss Edie, we would love to have you join the mission.
All right. So last question. How can I and our community here support you and Blackman Hill, Taz?
So Miss Edith just did a beautiful way of how you support. There's so many different ways to support, and that's what I've learned a lot about this journey, is that you could give your time, right? You could give your service, your gifts. So there's some people like, my accountist has done the type of sessions with me. Some of his sessions, I'm like, oh my God, how much do I owe you after 5 hours? And he'll be like, no, that's my gift. That's my gift. So that you have donated to our mission by.
That's not for everybody, by the way. That's not for everybody.
That's not for everybody, no. But it's an example of. But you already know that I also pay you too. But my point is, like what we said, like you're giving your gift, right? And of course you could give your dollars, right? If you can't give your time, and then you can't give your gift, you could give $1, right? And so you could donate at if you go to our website blackmanhill.org/donate, you could donate through there. You could donate through our Cash App. No amount is too small, and definitely no amount is too big. But you could donate. You could start a fundraiser. Charles Tank Harris is on our board of directors. He started a Facebook fundraiser for us around his birthday and raised $10,000 for us. So that's a beautiful example of how he's using his social media. You could use your social media, like help us get the word out. You could know somebody who, oh, wow, I know so-and-so who was connected to so-and-so with this grant, and they would want to hear about this. Like, repost us. So there's so many ways, but mostly I would say give us your prayers, your support, support us, and, with the action and those positive feedback we get keeps us going. The times when I'm most tired and somebody reaches out and tells me what they feel about the organization or what it has done for them in some ways, like that just gives me like a whole fuel of energy. So there's so many wonderful ways that you could support a mission like this.
Okay, so it looks like you got two potential volunteers.
Yes. Okay. Who
Just
else
make
you
sure
got?
I get my credit.
Christopher Allen. Oh,
Christopher Allen.
are you? Is that a provider? Christopher Allen, are you provider, I'm curious about that because there's different ways that people can volunteer. By the way, our providers are not volunteering. I got to get out that language, right? Right, Kamari? Like they're actually
Oh,
getting
they
paid
were.
with their
They
contracted.
were.
They were.
Right. And
But
you
by
still need
signing up,
volunteers.
yeah, you don't have to volunteer anymore. Like now, you could just come and we can pay you. But there's other ways in which you can volunteer. So when it comes to the therapist, so there's different ways you could volunteer for a mission like ours or help out. We need manpower and help in that ways. Or if you have a skill set, we've had people who had the technical skill sets who help with our systems and help with our websites. But if you want to do therapy with the men, I just want to differentiate that. Sometimes people say, "Oh, I want to do therapy with the men," and I've been like, "Great," and then they reach out to me, and I realize they're not a therapist. So I do want to say that, like our
They're not
program
qualified.
is, yeah, they're not qualified. So when it comes to the therapy for the men, yes, it is a very clinically ethical, legal, quality treatment program, and we make sure of that. So you do have to have the background to do counseling or therapy, at least a master's level or above in counseling or therapy.
Okay, so everybody can find you at info at Blackman Hill. Is that correct? Blackman Hill.
Blackmanhill.org is the website, and the email is info@blackmanhill.org. Or follow us on at Blackman Hill on Instagram or Facebook. But don't send a DM because it's so I just can't. I can't. It's too many. So send the email. Send the email. The DM situation is crazy.
Well, thank you, Ms. Tasman Suleiman, for spending time with us. Thank you for your contribution to the community and creating and co-creating Blackman Hill and just helping so many beautiful Black brothers out there be the best that they can be. So I thank you. I'm honored you took the time out. I'm honored that everyone else was here. Please go out and support Blackman Hill. Do me a favor, share this interview with people. That's a way of supporting myself and Blackman Hill because again, there's a big stigma in our community that one, we don't believe in therapy. Two, that we don't need therapy. Three, that we can go see our pastor, not pastor, but pastor.
Pray it away. Pray it away. Yeah.
Right. Pray it away. And that ain't always the case, folks. So let's continue to break these generational curses. Let's continue to be great. I will see you all. You know, I'll be back Wednesday at 8 p.m. for Wealthy Wednesdays, where I answer all your questions live. Listen, everybody be great. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Kamari.
And get some rest. Thank you, Taz. I appreciate you.
Bye.